I found out that my husband was cheating. So instead of just leaving on my own accord and moving on with my life, I decide to march down to his workplace and confront him amongst everybody that he knows. And oh yeah, his mistress, the dirty girl that he cheated with, she works there too. So I blew up the spot. You would not believe what this mistress had to say. The title's self-explanatory, but I figure it's necessary I give some background info. I'm female 24 and absolutely devastated right now. And I'm so consumed with this, I can't even think about anything else. After months of knowing something was off with my husband, I finally got the confirmation I needed. First off, we don't see each other a whole lot of our current work schedules, which I would later find out my husband was clearly taking advantage, just to spend time with his mistress. I put in around 50 or 60 hours every week as a manager at a local chain restaurant. And my husband's a probation officer who works long, irregular hours every single week. We mostly cross paths at night, and sometimes we might go a whole day or two without seeing each other when my husband's working throughout the night. We have been having issues for a while. At first, they seemed like small problems that we could easily overcome. We've been together since I was 17, and I thought that we could get over any hurdle. Things like my husband coming in late for work, too tired for sex, which I understand because it happens to everybody sometimes, but it went from only happening occasionally to happening every week, and then every single night. I started noticing a while ago that my husband always smelled like lipstick, on the same nights that he said that he was too tired to make love with me. Initially, I ignored it, but it started bugging me, until I had to ask him why he smelled like lipstick. He told me one of his probationers that he visits every night wore this thick makeup and lots of women's perfume. So I asked for a few more details because I wanted to believe him. But it seemed like such an odd excuse to smell like lipstick and perfume every night. He was clearly agitated by my prying and tried to explain it away, saying that he had to get close to the probationer just to search her person whenever he had to conduct a home visit. He said that he's been ordered to conduct a nightly home visit because this probationer had been moved to a high-risk supervision case. I didn't really understand all the probation officer jargon and lingo, so I eventually relented and just tried to put the whole thing out of my mind. There were several other weird occasions that simply would not leave my mind. There was the time my husband showed up from work with scratches all over his neck and back. I noticed that he was going to bed wearing long-sleeve shirts, even though he always sleeps shirtless. I thought that was weird, but figured maybe he's just too tired to undress. Then, the following morning, I woke up for work and noticed my husband in the bathroom getting ready. He's got these scratches all over his neck and back, and I asked him what happened. He told me a probationer of his assaulted him last night over a failed drug test during a home visit. I asked him if it was the same woman with the lipstick and heavy makeup, and he said, yeah. He hesitated as if he'd forgotten all about what he even told me before. I also thought it was weird that he went to bed the night before without ever mentioning that he's been, assaulted at work. Maybe I'm crazy, but that just seems like something you would tell your spouse, no? He told me he didn't tell me because he didn't want me to worry about him while he was at work. He cut off our conversation and quickly rushed out of the house, saying that he was running late and had to go early that morning. That incident was all I could think about. About my job that day, it's just on my mind, and my work performance was suffering because I was growing more and more suspicious. Deep suspicions of my husband. Since this was starting to eat away at me, I made sure to check the local newspaper for a local arrest report. I read every single local single arrest and mugshot for the following week. Even checked out the local mugshot website every single day. Sure enough, to my dismay, I didn't see a single man or woman who'd been arrested for a probation violation or for assaulting their probation officer, and certainly not for both charges. I began thinking about the lipstick woman, the scratches, and the inexplicably long hours at work, which had been going on for months at this point. So I began thinking about the times my husband would actually be at home, and instead of talking to his wife, he would be sitting on his cell phone texting, occasionally just giggling at something. Whenever I'd walk past him trying not to look at his phone out of respect for his privacy, he'd put his phone away. I noticed he would take it back out when he thought that I'd left the vicinity. I once tried to ask him about it casually as I could, but I could tell he knew I thought something was fishy. "Oh, who you chatting with, honey?" It took him a while to respond, and he asked me to repeat the question because he didn't hear me from across the room, but I could tell he was just lying. I asked him again, who was he talking to so much? He told me it was a work buddy, and I said, "Oh, a work buddy. We can invite him over sometime." Well, he immediately shot this idea down and claimed he and his friend were always too busy to hang out with each other outside of work hours. I thought his defensiveness was weird, but once again, I just pushed it out of my mind. I noticed shortly afterward that he stopped texting this so-called buddy of his after the incident, or at the very least, he wasn't texting this person around me. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back, which is why I'm writing this post today, actually. So, things have been going along about the same as what was our new version of usual. My husband can be a bit of a manipulator, and he is my first love, so he definitely has way more sway with me than most people. As crazy as it sounds, I was just perfectly fine putting up with a husband who was clearly sneaking around and hiding something from me. I was perfectly just fine putting up with the lack of affection, a lack of attention, a lack of love from who I thought was my soulmate. I've been so tired from dealing with him and dealing with my own demanding job that I was fine just riding out the storm, hoping it would blow over. But after what happened this time, I'm done making a clown of myself for this man. Basically, my husband has been using 2 cell phones. That was one of their innumerable red flags that had popped up recently along with everything else. Not too long ago, my husband dropped his work backpack on his way out the door for work, and I saw 2 cell phones clear as day, plop, right in front of me on the carpet. He frantically picked everything up, and when I offered to help him, he was adamant that he could do everything himself and did not need my help at all. I was going to just let it go, but I had to ask. "Honey, why do you have 2 cell phones?" My husband froze for a split second and gave the same type of hesitating, visibly uncomfortable response that he's given to me in my recent questions. His excuse was that one of the phones was a work phone. I'd never seen him using the so-called work phone yet. My husband had been a probation officer for 2 years, and his job has never issued him a work cell phone before. So he handled all his probation cases on his personal phone with no problem, yet for some reason they apparently just now bought him a brand new one. I told him I didn't know that he had a new phone, and he just said, "Oh, yeah." He quickly picked up the rest of the things and basically ran out the front door, saying he was running late for work. Okay, let's fast forward now about 2 weeks from the incident. Just the other day, I wake up on my first day off in a few weeks, and my husband's heading out the door for work. I tell him bye, tell him I love him, and he half-heartedly responded, "Yeah, I love you too." Turns out this would be the last civil conversation encounter that we ever had. I found myself just meandering around the house, and after he left, thinking about our relationship, and I was making myself some breakfast in the kitchen. A breakfast burrito. when I happened to notice my husband's work phone sitting there on the kitchen table. Well, I froze dead in my tracks when I noticed it. I've never been the jealous type. Until this moment, I've never once dreamt of betraying my husband's trust or invading his personal space in any sort of way. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore the feeling, my gut was telling me I needed to look through that phone. Well, guys, what I saw on this phone broke my heart, and it hurts me just to type this out. But I must get it off my chest, and I quote, the work phone wasn't a work phone at all. He had a few work-related texts in there mixed in, presumably to make it less suspicious if I ever did get to the phone. But the first conversation I opened was with a contact named Supervisor. Seeing this conversation made the past few months make absolutely so much sense. So get this. As soon as I open their message history, I see that my husband and, well, supervisor have been sharing almost nothing but sexually explicit messages. I see pictures they've taken of each other while at work. And I just immediately get it dawned on me why my husband's been working late so much. He's been meeting this woman at the probation office after normal work hours. The woman looks to be in her mid to late 20s, and the creepiest part is, she looks just like me. Same blonde hair, same blue eyes, same facial features, even the bone structure in our jaws. Uncanny. As if I was looking at a mirror image of what I would look like in a few years. As I kept reading their messages, it turns out this woman actually is my husband's supervisor. So at least he told the truth about one little thing. I'm obsessively reading through their texts now, even though each text just hurts worse than the last. I see text where they're bad-mouthing coworkers, talking about things they're going to do in person office after work hours. There's photo evidence of this and plenty of other gross and unethical things I don't even want to type. Well, to top it all off, I see text where my husband and his mistress are calling me lame, boring, heck, even a stick in the mud, and vanilla. Text where my husband's mistress says she's hotter than me, and my husband agrees with her. It still stings so much that they both belittle me for working all the time, saying it's not my husband's fault for cheating on me because I'm working. Well, I'm the one who pays most of our bills. I was taking care of all of our finances, bills, groceries, rent, everything. Until my husband got this job. I work so hard because I must. Not because I loved being away from my husband, slaving away at the restaurant almost every day of my life. And here they are, both just belittling me. This whole time, I was so proud of my husband for working so much, even though it was hurting our relationship, and now I have the truth sitting here in my pocket. After spending around half hours in a trance, reading all these texts until I physically couldn't read anymore, I went back and forwarded everything to my email on my own cell phone. I've got copies of every single incident of infidelity, every single account of these two messing around when they're supposedly working. That's when my blind rage consumed me entirely. I put my husband's phone in my pocket and got into my car, and I drove to that probation office. It's a miracle I wasn't pulled over by a cop. Because I'll be honest with you, I was speeding the entire drive there. I parked the car and marched into the office. I walked up to the front desk and told the clerk I was my husband's wife and that I needed to speak to him about an emergency. It was at that moment I saw my husband and his mistress, aka the supervisor, walk into the office. He understandably looked surprised to see me, and the mistress was eyeing me with disgusted looks on her face. Well, my husband asked, "What's going on here?" That's when I let the beans spill. Basically, everything I've talked about in this post came out pouring in the open in front of my husband's entire workplace. There were other officers in the probation office, and everyone just froze while I showed pictures of my husband and his mistress. Pictures of them breaking workplace rules. Pictures of them bad-mouthing coworkers, everything. I was screaming hysterically, but I obviously got my message across and my husband just stared at me. He didn't even have the guts to try to explain it away. I guess he knew the gig was up. He had been caught red-handed and the mistress didn't say anything either. After my outburst was over, a small crowd of my husband's coworker gathered around us. I threw his cell phone on the ground and ran back out to my car to get home ASAP. Once I got home, I sent emails full of screenshots to my husband and his mistress, to all of their supervisors. All this information was available on the probation officer's websites, so basically any higher-up's name who had an email address next to it got an email detailed attachment of my husband's infidelity and unethical behavior. I won't lie to you. I wanted him to feel the same shame and humiliation I was feeling. I wanted him to pay. Not long after this, my husband knocked on the door, pleading for me to let him in. Well, I absolutely refused to speak to him. I sent him a text saying I would pack up his belongings and that he could return for them tomorrow to pick them up from the garage. I informed him that he no longer has a place to live, because we both know the house is in my name. It's my house and I'm not going to give this snake another chance to make my life worse. Later that night, I'm sitting in the living room sobbing over having wasted the past 7 years of my life, when I get this ring of a text from my husband. He tells me he and his mistress have been fired from the office. He says he doesn't blame me for reacting the way I did towards him, but he tells me I am very much the a-hole for getting the mistress involved and impacting her own career as well. So basically, my question to you guys is this: am I the a-hole for confronting my husband's mistress and ruining her career? What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Today's story was so action-packed. Could you imagine the look on all the coworkers' faces when OP marches in there and rips apart her husband to shreds? There is some updates that OP posted along the way, and I've compiled every single one. Guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Go ahead and click that subscribe button underneath this video right now for daily videos. And now we'll check out update number 1. Hey everyone, I'm back. I wish I had some good news to share, but to be honest, I don't. I know this was stupid, but I let my husband move back into my house shortly after my original post. Yeah, not long after I kicked him out either. He starts really just laying it on me thick. He was texting me at all hours of the night, telling me he's sorry, telling me it was a huge mistake. He told me that he was going to get help for his, quote, urges that were causing him to be unfaithful. He said he wants to get back together and have that spark that we used to have. At first, I was pretty insistent that we should break things off for good, but truth is told, I was scared. I was just too scared, and I didn't really mean it. I mean, I've been with this man for 7 years of my life. I wasn't even legally an adult when we started dating, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. I felt like we've grown up together. He had helped guide me through my highest highs and lowest of lows. We had always come out of every issue stronger together, so like a fool, I was willing to give him another chance, and one day, after some texting back and forth, I agreed to let him come over to my house just to get some of his belongings. Instead of showing up ready to pack his things, he showed up at my door with flowers. They were beautiful. Chocolates, and even new clothing for me. You name it, he had it. To double down, he starts actually crying when I open the door, full crocodile tears. He repeated all things that he's been telling me via text message, all those things about being sorry and wanting to become this new man, and just wanting to be the best husband he could be for our future. I'm ashamed to admit it to you guys. It worked on me like a charm. I was in a state of vulnerability, and I was not used to being so alone, so I decided to let him stay for the night. He slowly starts moving his belongings back in, one by one, and we decided to work on a relationship and get past this little bumpy road. I will admit, everything was going great. For about 3 weeks. I was loving my life, working, slowly falling back in love with my husband, and I was willing to forgive and forget everything. And then I come home from work and find out it's an empty house. Well, this was weird, since my husband has been unemployed since my little explosion at the probation office. I thought maybe he was out just job searching or maybe even an interview or something, but what I found in my kitchen, I guess you can say, destroyed me. I saw a piece of notebook paper on the kitchen table. There's a message from my husband, all about how we can never regain the spark we once had. And he put it bluntly, he's not in love with me. Not anymore. He said he was in love with his mistress, the same supervisor I mentioned before, who was happily trying to ruin my life. According to him, she's been hired as a probation officer in a neighboring state, and my husband's moving away with her. He told me he blocked me on all social media and blocked my number, and don't even bother contacting him. Well, I'll be honest, I'm sick to my stomach about this. I don't know how I can continue. How can my husband do this to me? How could I be so stupid to let him hurt me like this again? What's up, guys? Update 2 is coming up right now. Let me know in the comment section down below, do you think it was a good idea for OP to take her husband back? Okay, let's jump into update 2, and unfortunately, it opens up with the line, I'm back with some bad news. I can't seem to catch a break, and I'm at my wit's end. I already couldn't believe I'd ended up in such a predicament, but things just keep getting worse. I wanted to forget my husband and his mistress even ever existed, considering the heck that they've put me through, but they just kept piling it on. So a lot's transpired since my last update, and I've had more time on my hands lately due to decreased hours at my job. The restaurant where I work was basically cutting hours due to low business, so I've had all this time to sit and stew in my emotions instead of handling it in a healthy manner. I've taken to drinking alcohol. Pretty heavily, to be honest, and it's every night. I've had issues with alcoholism in the past, so deep down I knew this was not a good idea whatsoever, but obviously if you've been reading my post, you'll know I'm not the best decision maker. Part of my nightly drinking routine has involved getting blackout drunk and typing up bad things about my ex-husband and his mistress. I'm still not quite, over it, and I haven't been handling it well. It was immature of me, but I've been going crazy posting on whatever you can call Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything. I even left a Google review for the local probation office detailing what happened with my husband and his mistress. I also left a review for their current probation office, emailed all their supervisors, but unfortunately, this futile quest to somehow get revenge or get even with these two people who basically shattered my entire heart into pieces hasn't worked out well at all. Apparently, in one of my drunk modes one night, I made an entire blog dedicated to bad-mouthing my ex-husband and his mistress, detailing all my personal gripes. This came back to bite me hard. I received a lawyer's certified letter in the mail saying I was being sued for character defamation and harassment. I couldn't believe it. I immediately took the website down, obviously, but they said it's too late. Next thing I know, I'm getting another letter in the mail about a court date I'm required to attend. I could barely even afford a lawyer, and I had nowhere to turn. I ended up putting all my savings into paying for the lawyer, and I still lost the court case. I was ordered to pay a substantial settlement to my ex-husband's mistress for defamation of character, and in the process, I ended up losing my home because I could no longer make the payments. So here I am. Just keeps getting worse. I don't know what I did to deserve this. Luckily, I was able to move in with my cousin, but I'm still devastated and in shock. I've lost the love of my life and my hard-earned house, all because of my ex-husband and his horrible mistress. Can't they leave me alone? Update number 3. Hey guys, if you're still reading this post and checking in, thank you. It's been such a load off my mind to be able to vent here. Unfortunately, things on my end just keep getting crazier. If you read my last update, you'll know that I moved in with my cousin after being unable to afford my house payment due to court costs and legal fees. My hours at work just kept getting cut because the restaurant business isn't picking up. So I've been pretty down in the dumps. My cousin has been as accommodating as she could be, but I feel guilty for having to rely on her for help. I've curtailed my alcohol use, and I've stopped posting on the internet about my ex-husband and his mistress. I can't say I'm quote over him yet, but I've been slowly trying to pick up the pieces and rebuild my life. I'm doing my best to get on track. I deactivated all my social media accounts so I wouldn't be tempted to look up my mistress and stalk her from a distance. I'm much better off not knowing anything about her, to be honest, yet life finds a way of rearing its ugly head sometimes. Let's fast forward to this week. It's my birthday. I'm not too enthused about this one, as I'm doing 100% worse than I was doing my birthday last year. I didn't even have plans to go out or do anything. I was just planning on working, going home, and going to bed. Maybe having a celebratory glass of wine for dinner, even though there isn't much to celebrate, eh? But sure enough, my boss calls me and tells me not to bother coming in because business is so slow, so here I am stuck at home. My cousin gets off work later that day and has a freshly purchased cake with her, along with a few neatly wrapped gifts. It did lift my mood, I'll say that. I'm glad she did this for me. We're enjoying the cake and chatting when she tells me to open a gift. It's a 23andMe ancestry kit. I'd mentioned buying one for a while, and my cousin and I watch a lot of true crime documentaries, and I've always been fascinated by DNA. I couldn't afford to get one myself, and I was so happy my cousin got this for me. I used the DNA kit, and what I found out has rocked my world even more. Turns out there's a reason my ex-husband's mistress looks so much like me. Guys, she's my older sister. I immediately called my mother and asked her about it, and she told me that they had put her up for adoption because they couldn't afford to raise a child yet. A few years later, I was born. How can this horrible woman even be in the same species as me, let alone family? Update number 4, back at it again for a few updates. Hey guys, I know that it's been a while, and my life's been through some more ups and downs since my last post. To start with, I finally lost my job last year, when my boss had to close the restaurant due to no business. We've all lost jobs before, so you all know what a curveball it can be in your life, especially when life only seems to throw you curveballs. I quickly got a job at a different restaurant with better pay and benefits, so I'm doing okay in that regard. Not too long ago, I was driving to work and noticed a billboard for the grand opening of a new restaurant in town. That's nothing too out of the ordinary, as restaurants are always coming and going. Here's the weird part. The mascot for this restaurant is the spitting image of my ex-husband's mistress. Given her close resemblance to me, it was always a bit like seeing myself on a billboard unexpectedly. Pretty jarring, but not the worst thing in the world. But when I was parking at work, I nearly wrecked my car out of shock. Right across the street from my workplace is a new restaurant in a nice new building, and it's way nicer looking than where I'm working now. I see a large sign featuring the same mascot I saw in the building, right on the way to work. And then I noticed her, standing in front of the door with my ex-boss. There she was, my ex-husband's mistress. It was normal for a small group of local media reporters to gather for the grand opening of a business in our town. I do live in a small town, and these type of events usually drum up some business for a new place. But that wasn't normal for the crowd of customers already lining up. The parking lot of the restaurant was absolutely jam-packed, and I could see reporters interviewing my ex-boss and the mistress. As silly as it may sound, I could barely focus on my work that day, just knowing that the mistress and long-lost sister who ruined my marriage was across the street was so much bugging me. And then came all the workplace chatter. Coworkers kept mentioning the new bustling restaurant, stopping there on their lunch break and talking about how good it was and how much better it was than where we work. Okay, so let's fast forward a few weeks, and I've still been avoiding the restaurant. I'm the only person I know who hasn't tried it. My restaurant's numbers are absolutely dwindling, and our sales are going across the street. I also heard from a coworker that my ex-boss is dating my sister. Why does this woman keep appearing in my life? As soon as I think I've moved past the pain of my husband's infidelity, the woman he left me for happens to open a restaurant with my ex-boss right across the street from where I work. Update number 5. This is my last update. I thank everybody who read my post this far for this long, as it's been quite a few updates. I received a startling revelation today, and it's hard to come to terms with it. To give a bit of an update of my cheating ex-husband, I recently found out he was arrested. Arrested for taking bribes, sleeping with his probation years, and even embezzling money was one of his charges. He's probably going to be locked up for a long time. Getting some confirmation that he's a horrible human being, both in and out of our relationship, was absolutely satisfying. But I hardly even think about him anymore, to be honest. So it's not a big deal to me. But here's where it gets even more surprising. The mistress reached out to me on Facebook. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She explained everything, and it was a lot to take in, to be honest. The mistress explained that my ex-husband had been blackmailing her while they were working at the probation office. Apparently, my husband found out that the little mistress had been taking illegal bribes herself, and that the affair they had was at his insistence. She told me all about how it was my ex-husband who had forced them to move out of state to work at another probation office, and the ex-husband who convinced her to sue me for defamation of character. As I kept reading her long messages, it dawns on me that my ex-husband wasn't just a serial cheater. He was all around a horrible human being in general. I don't want to reveal too much here, but my husband was abusing her so badly. He was stealing her money. Even when they got into a relationship together, it was because he had emotionally manipulated her. She ended her messages with a simple request. She asked me to forgive her. She even offered me a job at the restaurant she owns with my ex-boss. I had to decline the offer, but I told her I do forgive her for everything. I've moved on from my past life, and I'm so glad my ex-husband's going to prison, where he can't hurt people anymore. So the comment section was very unique with this story. Seems like the top 2 comments were both sides of a different coin. Let me go ahead and tell you these 2 comments, and let's talk about it down below, which one you agree with more. Comment 1 says, "Not the a-hole. You're going through a lot right now, and your husband cheated on you for months. You had every right to confront him and his mistress. And if they were breaking workplace rules as a boss myself and engaging in unethical behavior, they deserve the consequences. If anything, they're the ones who should be held responsible for their actions, not you." The mistress knew that she was engaging in an affair with a married man, so she must have been prepared to face the consequences if the truth ever came out. That is comment number 1, so the verdict of that is not the a-hole, which just slightly had more comments on it and seems like more people agreed with it. Here's the second comment that is the second most popular opinion. You are the a-hole, but only slightly. While I completely understand the pain and betrayal you felt after discovering your husband's affair, publicly confronting him and his mistress at their workplace was not the best way to handle the situation. Instead, you could have confronted him in private and possibly sought legal counsel to protect yourself during the inevitable separation. By involving the mistress's career, you did potentially ruin her life as well. However, it is essential to remember that your husband and his mistress are the ones who chose to engage in the affair, and they both share responsibility for their actions. So that's why slightly you are the a-hole. So guys, there's the two sides of the coins. Let me know in the comment section down below which one you agree with more. And if you're new to the channel, smash that subscribe button. I hope to see you in the next video. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.